Word of the day, replete. Replete is an adjective used to describe things as fully or abundantly provided or filled, abundantly fed, stout, or complete. Like my fantasy team this year, or at least one of them, I'm still kind of on the fence with another one. Anyway, welcome back to Chopping It Up with PScott. I'm PScott Kelly. Today is Friday, September 6th. Glad to have you back with us. We got a lot going on this live stream. I'm going to try to be not as distracted as I can be. Like that already. We got Packers and Eagles still live going on. And because of, there's copyright infringements, I can't stream the game. I can't talk about it in real time. So I'm on a little bit of a delay. But y'all know the deal. You can get into the chat, talk about this game. I'm gonna give you my perspective on the Chiefs and Ravens, from last night. What we're seeing so far in this game, and my PScott's picks are back. Now I put it in earlier in the chat, or not on the chat, but on my personal page. I'm betting on this game, this Eagles and Packers live. I had the Eagles -2, so that's part of my PScott's picks for the 5-team parlay. So stick with us. Hopefully this one hits. So far, the Eagles are up by 5, 31-26. Now, before I get too far into this, I want to give a big shout out again to my dude Nick Stevens of the Houston Sports Stadium Podcast, Mac Brooks of the Mac Truck Podcast. I know that we're going to have some stragglers coming because this football game is going on currently, but there's been a lot of flags. The first couple games, the first week or so, I think is, it's kind of expected. So if you guys want to chime on over here doing them, we can get back into it. So, and also, if you have hot takes, I mentioned this earlier on the pages. If you have some hot takes that your friends that think that they just feel that they're completely outlandish, that need defending, put them in the comment section. I'll see whether they need to be defended or defeated, and we'll just kind of go from there. So yesterday's game, when it came to the Ravens and Chiefs, really felt like these two teams are trying to, it felt like what they did in week one is what they want to try to do for the rest of the season. Now, the Ravens, they featured Derrick Henry a lot in the first half, the first quarter most specifically, then kind of got away from him. I think when I say that each team did what they wanted to do, I don't mean specifically, let's just go back to Lamar Jackson for a second. With him rushing the ball 16 times, I don't mean that he's going to run the ball 16 times. He did seem like he was on a mission, though. I'll give him that with the whole, now he's won 2 MVPs, coming off an MVP season last year, losing to the Chiefs last year. Sorry, again, I'm kind of watching the Eagles game on the side too. Is it felt like he wanted to come out and prove that this other MVP was not a hoax, that it wasn't just because, well, we've dumbed it down to really over the past number of years. It's a quarterback stat, or it's a quarterback award, and it usually goes to whoever the quarterback is on the team with the best record. And that's what the Ravens were, and especially I think at least in the AFC. And that's what we've just kind of dumbed it down to. I think what he wanted to do was prove that, no, man, I'm on a mission this year. But to think that Baltimore is going to lean so heavily on Lamar Jackson for the running game, I think this is an outlier. I think that was a one-time sample size. You might see him get 16 carries again this season. But if you're betting on Lamar is going to be double-digit carries every single game, I think that you're being disingenuous with what you actually saw. And that's not a matchup you want to see all the time. The other thing I think that we're seeing is something that I've been saying for a while when it comes to wide receivers, and most specifically when it comes to Baltimore, is Baltimore has just kind of pick and chose guys to try to be wide receivers, right? They tried with OBJ. They've tried it with Sammy Watkins. They've tried it. Like, they've just tried getting names. Let's just get names and get our fan base excited about, we'll see. It's not just the run game. It's not just tight ends. We're going after wide receivers, and they go and draft guys like Rashad Bateman, Hollywood Brown. You're just getting dudes and you're getting names. They're going to either need a true number one wide receiver to open up things for these less talented guys, and also for Mark Andrews, and now likely who came on strong last year when Andrews was injured and had a monster game yesterday. I just feel like nobody really still fears Baltimore's wide receivers, and more than that, still doesn't trust Lamar Jackson to truly beat him or beat you with his arm and arm talent and however you want to, equate his mechanics and whatever you want to, however you want to word it. So it just feels to me that Baltimore did, especially in their first drive, what they want to be known for. We want to use the run game. We want to use Derrick Henry. But at the same token, you are going to have to mix it up more than just first quarter, let's get him 6 carries. Also, again, Lamar's not going to get 16 carries every single game. We saw a little more from Kansas City as well, that they're going to be a good mix, I believe, of what they were Mahomes' first couple of years and what they've been the last 2 or 3 years. When they had Tyreek, it was a lot of over the top, a lot of big plays. And Kelsey was obviously younger in his career as well. He was more of a focal point. And now you got speed everywhere in Kansas City. And Kelsey to me now is more of just when things break down, you can just go find me, Patrick. And there was a play when things broke down in most scramble drills. When we see this is when things break down, if you're short as a receiver, you go long. If you're long, you go short. You come back to the receiver, or you come back to your quarterback. Those are like your generic scramble drills. Whereas Kelsey he sees his matchup, takes one hard step in, and then goes out and has that huge catch. And I think that that's what you're going to see with Kelsey a lot this year, is that he's not going to be a focal point and a guy that you necessarily game plan around, but he is going to be a dude who in the scramble drills, which there's going to be a lot of, I don't know what the high mark is for his receptions or his yards per reception, but I could absolutely see this being one of his higher. It may not be high as far as overall catches or overall yards, but yards per reception, it might be one of his top 3 or 4 seasons of his career. Now, sorry, I'm looking back over. Currently, we're still Eagles 31, Green Bay 26. So this game too, I've been able to watch a little bit more. I was at work for the beginning of it, but work's kind of slow. So we were able to, get some running on this early. This has not been a good game so far to me personally. There have been some big plays, but there's been a lot of missteps. The field I understand is bad, but these first 2 games, there's been a lot of penalties. And even right now, this Green Bay and Philly game, there's been a lot of penalties. It's been sloppy. And yes, the field conditions haven't been great. So to me, it's not a making excuse thing, because both teams have to play through this, right? But it's been entertaining because there's been some big plays, but there's been some busted plays. There's been a lot of missed throws. There's been a lot of missed tackling. Just because it's more entertaining doesn't mean it's necessarily a good football game. It looks like we just had a missed field goal as well by Green Bay. So again, the first leg of the PScott's picks this week was Philadelphia -2. And right now we're sitting pretty good as they have a 5-point lead. But again, so we'll go back and forth with this game. But yeah, to me, it hasn't been a great football game. It's just had some big moments and some entertaining moments because we're looking for points. We're looking for big plays in fantasy and all that good stuff. But what we'll do for now is we'll get into PScott's picks. And if there's anybody who, again, if you're watching both at the same time, give me an update so I'm not being so distracted. But what I want to do now is get into PScott's picks, and we'll go ahead and get this PScott's picks music going. Oh, and of course, the moment that I look around for, Barkley looks like he just had another big run. Barkley was like my number 1 or number 2 dudes that I picked up in both my fantasy drafts, so we're sitting pretty right now. And he was my captain on my FanDuel or my DraftKings pickup this year. Anyway, so first leg of my parlay, Eagles -2. I figured that there was going to be a lot of offensive line issues going like at the beginning of this season, right? And I'm still not convinced that there won't be. We've seen them give up on a play where Jalen Hurts got mollywopped, and it was because Lane Johnson gave up on a play because they thought that the play was going to be dead. That's the one thing I feel like you can't do is give up on a play, especially when you know it's a pass play. You can't be letting your quarterback get rocked like that. So there's just some communication issues. I think that those things will largely get ironed out as the season goes on. But the reason why I mostly picked Philadelphia is the offensive talent there is just bananas. I'm still not as high on Jordan Love and the Packers as a lot of other people are. This always boils down to, again, like there's the missed throws on both sides from Jalen and Jordan Love so far. I just felt that this Philadelphia Eagles defense was going to play a little bit better. They have given up a bunch of big plays, but it's still, I don't feel like Jordan Love is still on the precipice of where we think that he is as a franchise quarterback. And obviously, I'm going to get some pushback on that, given the huge play to Jaden Reed earlier and the touchdown pass to Christian Watson. But Philly to me just has too much offensive power, and Barkley has shown that he's almost kind of like that Derrick Henry. He's a little bit more versatile out of the backfield, but he's still the dude who squats 600 pounds and can get you so many of those tough yards, keep drives alive. Of course, this game can still go sideways on me, but the first leg of my PScott's picks, Eagles -2 against the Packers. Now, moving on to pick number 2. Seahawks are hosting the Denver Broncos. This was an interesting one. I went back and forth on it for actually quite a while. Bo Nix is going to be starting for the Broncos, which rookies, especially in tough environments like Seattle, you generally don't want to start them. They've had a poor record, first-round quarterbacks starting over the past 20, 25 years. This hasn't been good. So the thing that I struggled with, though, is that obviously Bo Nix is an older quarterback and has played in some really big stadiums, loud stadiums, and Seattle is known for that. That was one where I almost went the other way, because it is, when I locked these in this morning, the Seahawks were -6. And that's the reason why I took it, because I feel like they're going to win by 7 or more. Bo Nix has played in some of these big arenas where there's been a lot of noise. But the thing for me is, like, this is not college, right? This isn't college football. Just because you played in the loud environments, you're not playing against NFL talent across the board. And Seattle's got really good wide receiving core. I don't feel like Geno Smith is someone who you need to necessarily fear. I know a couple of years ago he was on track for MVP, which I thought was asinine. But that was short-lived. That was like a month and a half. But that was a real thing that happened, is he was getting real MVP consideration by some. But their offensive skill guys are good. They've got a great young secondary. I think they're going to be able to confuse Bo Nix. They don't have Jerry Jeudy. I know that doesn't seem like a big loss given his production in Denver beforehand. But that also, with the quarterback situation, what did you really want him to do? He also missed some time with some injuries. This, to me, I went back and forth because I think that Seattle's going to win this game. If this was any higher, I'd probably be shaking it. But I feel good about Seattle -6 at home against the Broncos. Next game, we are moving on to Rams +4.5 at the Lions. The Lions for the longest time were considered a failure and one of the laughing stocks of the NFL. And even when they got Dan Campbell, they were still considered that, because they were laughing now at one person in Dan Campbell and not just the team, its record, its 0-16. It kind of shifted with the kneecap biting from the organization to just one man. But over the last couple of years, Detroit's been much better, right? Jared Goff has seemed competent. He's had such a weird professional career, right? The number 1 overall pick, gets to a Super Bowl early on in his career. We think that the Rams pay him too early because you're paying a quarterback, which has always been my argument, is you're paying a quarterback based on the team's success, and they paid him too much and they paid him too early. And generally when you are trading away your number 1 draft pick, of just a few years prior, that means that you've given up on him, especially for an older quarterback in Matt Stafford, who obviously won his first Super Bowl in his first year with the Rams. And it kind of solidified for most that Goff was the one holding them back, not anybody else. And that to me, that can be a little bit too simplistic, but the data is the data at that point in time. But when I look at the overall expectations of Detroit, this team to me feels like it went from being one of the most laughed at franchises to now being one of the most overhyped. And I think that it's just swung a little bit too much. I still don't think that Jared Goff is great. I think that they depend way too much on Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporta, that maybe, just maybe. And again, I picked the Rams plus 4.5. I didn't pick them on the money line. I probably should have because I feel pretty confident with this. But with all the weapons they have with Nakua and Kupp and the Lions, to me, just again, I feel like they're being overvalued early on. I'm going to take the Rams plus 4.5 against the Lions. Moving on. Next on the docket, we've got the Niners minus 4.5 against the Jets. This one we've seen it sway quite a bit. It was San Francisco early on was they were minus 7.5, minus 7. We saw the Lions have to move with the drama with Ayuk and with Trent Williams. Now it seems like most of that's kind of put by the wayside. I just feel like the Jets are another one of these teams that's kind of, it's similar to the Jets, where the hype is just too real, or it's just too much for me. There's still offensive line issues with the Jets. Last time I checked, San Francisco still has a bonkers defense. I don't feel like this offense is going to be able to put up points on San Francisco. And San Francisco still has, even if Trent Williams doesn't play, I believe that he's going to. But when I look at the Niners and the Jets, a lot of the money is moved onto the Jets because of all these offseason issues with the Niners. I just feel like 4.5 points. The Niners are at home. Offensive line issues with the Jets. I have no idea if Aaron Rodgers is even going to be good at this point. I know that Garrett Wilson's awesome. I know that Breece Hall is awesome, but their offensive and their defense is awesome. But Hassan Reddick isn't going to play. I still have questions at certain points of the Jets defense. I know overall they've been great, but when everyone's clicking with San Francisco minus 4.5, to me, that seems like easy money. I am taking the Niners minus 4.5 at home against the Jets. The last leg of the PScott's picks parlay. Chargers minus 3 versus the Raiders at home. There's always the week 1 goofy matchup, right? And the Raiders are kind of that one for me where I have no idea what I'm going to get from Gardner Minshew. He could throw for 330 yards and 3 touchdowns, or he could throw for $160 and 3 INTs. I have no idea which one I'm going to get with him, which makes him the ultimate gunslinger and outlier because he doesn't really, I don't feel like he really cares. I really honestly feel like he'd rather be a backup. He could be the next clipboard Jesus with that hair that he's got. But the Chargers, for me, I feel like this is really a statement game for the Harbaugh regime coming back into the NFL. Now, it's going to be a little weird because Eckler's not there, right? He's in Washington. There's no Keenan Allen. So I understand that there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with the offense. But I don't trust the Raiders. They lost Josh Jacobs. The Raiders, to me, are just still the Raiders, right? I know they got Max Crosby, and he's awesome. But the Chargers still have Bosa. He's awesome. This, to me, just feels offensive. Like, from that perspective, they're basically a push. But then who do I trust more at quarterback? And it's still Justin Herbert. And it's 3 at home, and that's usually what the spread is, right? If it's on a neutral field, home field is supposed to be worth essentially 3 points. So it's supposed to be a pick'em game. But I just don't feel like this is going to be the same Chargers team that you've seen from years past, that they're going to be a little bit more physical in the trenches. They're not going to be looking for Justin Herbert to just gunsling him out of games. Chargers minus 3. I think they get off with a bang. I think not that they blow them out, but 3 to me just doesn't seem like there's the value just isn't there. So that was PScott's picks. All right, we still got almost a full quarter left of this Eagles-Packers game. I'm gonna let y'all get back to watching it. Maybe, just maybe, if time permits, we can hop back on and discuss this game afterwards too. You guys know the drill. Stay up, stay blessed, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.